Tommy, this is not a vacation for me. I'm out here against my will, so the least you can do is pretend to work. Ugh, I can actually hear you getting fatter. All right, it's sale time, so remember, we don't take
no for an answer.
No.
Okie dokie.
I'm gonna pass.
Gotcha, thanks. Oh, son of a... That's gonna leave a mark.
Okay, let's check you out. All right.
It's a clip, huh?
Are you sure?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Granite Mountain Movie Club. I am your host. I go by Granite. The devil didn't want this episode to happen. There was lots of back and forth and scheduling drama, but we've got here. And I think it's because it's so important that we had all that opposition. But this is a show where we talk about movies, and today we're talking about Tommy Boy from 1995. Kind of a classic. You've probably seen Tommy Boy. Today I'm joined by Cool Frazier.
Yes, hello. I'm cool and also listening.
We've got Degree Studies.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got a first-time guest, Scott. Anything you want to plug, Scott? What should the people know about you?
Yeah, first time here. I'm cool, and I'm usually listening, but I'm here now. I go by Scott on Twitter and elsewhere. I also have a podcast called the History and Music Podcast, where we choose songs with historic lyrics and talk about history.
I went on History and Music Podcast one time. I didn't understand the concept that well, so I kind of goofed it up, but it's still cool. It was still a really good episode, I'm sure. So
yeah, I mean, we're not super strict about like the concept.
Where does mine rank in the popularity of your episodes? Is it the most popular or only like second most popular?
I haven't looked in a while, but yeah, it's like way up there.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually like the worst, but
I still got to come on to talk about Hurricane. I think we chatted about that.
Oh, were you going to talk about the
ago.
Hurricane movie and the Hurricane Bob Dylan song?
Yeah, because like he's definitely guilty.
That's what I think too.
Let's do it. I haven't recorded an episode in like months now. It's kind of fallen off for a bit, but yeah, we'll totally have you on.
And I think we have some sponsors for today as well. So before we get into the movie, we got to, we got to pay the bills. Cool Frazier's in charge of handling our relationships with sponsors. What do we have today?
Hold on. I'm sending you the ad copy.
Oh, the ad copy, yeah.
I'll be narrator.
Oh, you're gonna read it?
You be host. I'll be
parts.
narrator.
2 parts. Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 parts to this ad copy for some reason. This is a very picky advertiser.
Okay, yeah, and they're paying big bucks, so we have to read the whole thing. Okay. Hey, tech enthusiasts, get ready for an exciting announcement. Have you ever dreamed of diving into the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning? Well, it's time to turn those dreams into reality.
Introducing Shaolin AI Bootcamp, kicking off on January 29th. Elevate your tech skills, master Python, delve into advanced AI technologies, and shape your future in just 24 weeks.
Whether you're a beginner or looking to advance your skills, Shaolin AI Bootcamp is designed for you. Join a community of tech enthusiasts and learn from industry experts.
From foundational Python to cutting-edge technologies like GPT and computer vision, each week is a step towards your future tech career.
Hands-on projects, real-world applications, and a transformative learning experience await you. This is not just a course, it's a journey to becoming a tech innovator.
Sign up today and kick off your AI journey with Shaolin AI Bootcamp starting January 29th. Don't miss out on this opportunity to revolutionize your tech skills.
Visit Shaolin AI Bootcamp.
It's just Shaolin.ai.
Oh, okay. Visit Shaolin.ai to secure your spot. Shaolin AI Bootcamp, where your tech future begins.
That's good.
Granted, how much is Shaolin kicking you for this ad arrangement?
I gave him a really good discount. This was only $30,000.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's why it's so long and repetitive, I guess.
I assume whoever that was definitely wrote it by hand.
Yeah, it wasn't written by AI for sure.
Mhm.
Well, we have another sponsor, and this is I don't know if you guys have heard of this company. It's kind of in stealth mode right now. I don't know if you guys know that term. That's like a tech term. But there's some scientists in Scandinavia who've been working on a product called Croom.
Oh, wait, I've heard of this.
Oh, you've heard of Croom? Well, it's a cutting edge lineup of men's grooming products designed specifically, and wait for this, specifically for you.
For me?
Yeah, guys just like you. Croom's mission is to make sure every man has the tools he needs to look and smell fresh.
Wait, I'm a swarthy Mediterranean man. Surely it can't work for me.
Oh, it can. The guys at Croom understand the challenges of the modern man, and their products are made just for you. Want to attract women, overcome your self-abuse habit, or have more confidence on those Zoom calls? Croom is for you. So you guys got some early samples. What did you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as you guys know, I'm a bit of an old troon, and I slapped some of that stuff off, and I was looking exactly like a new fag. So I was so excited about it.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a self-abuse Zoom enthusiast. So, on Zoom, always self-abusing. So I used it and it totally cured me of that.
Yeah, it's not out yet for the general public, but we all got a sneak peek. It's really good.
Yep.
It's
And I got that the retention glow that you just can't get without the Croom.
Yes, yeah. It's like you successfully completed NNN, if you know what I mean, every day.
And I heard, granted, I was just looking around on Twitter, doing my normal digital rounds, and I think I saw that Kamala Harris was following the Croom account. Is that right?
Yeah, I think she via her husband, she might be an early backer of Croom.
Okay. Does their NB daughter use Croom, or this is exclusively a male thing?
This is only for men, but what is it? Strong enough for a woman, or strong enough for a man, made for a woman. This is strong enough for a man and made for a man.
Word.
All right, coming soon, Croom. You guys watch out for it. But okay, let's get into Tommy Boy, and I'll ask you guys about your early exposure to Tommy Boy, but I'll go first and just say I might have seen this in the theater. I don't remember, but I know I saw it very shortly after it came out because everyone did, and it seemed like every kid, every like teenage boy or something knew like all the lines from Tommy Boy. And so yeah, I have a very vivid memory of this movie. It played a big part of my teen years, and I hadn't revisited it for a while, so it was good to revisit it recently for this. What about you guys?
Yeah, I remember my one of my mom's good friends, for some reason, I don't know, I guess she babysat us sometimes, and she took me to this movie, and I remember really liking it. I was probably a little young, but the main thing I remember is when we came out of the movie, she was like, "Evan, do you know what Marquette is?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Marquette is an okay school. I don't know why they'd agree to be in this movie." And like, I had no idea what she was talking about, but that has stuck with me over the years.
I didn't know Marquette was involved until rewatching it this time. Yeah, I don't remember seeing it in theaters, but this was a ubiquitous movie for sure. Saying Herbie Hancock was the funniest thing you could do.
I didn't even get that joke when I saw the movie, but we still
I thought it was a Herbie funny Hancock name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like Luke, I am your father into the fan. That was invented by this movie, I think.
Doing it into the fan.
Yeah. But when I was a kid in my group of friends, we were all the same age in the same neighborhood, and all my friends called me Chris Green, a combination of Chris Farley and Tom Green,
Oh,
the two funniest people in the late 90s. So
that's a huge compliment
I
right
thought
there.
you were gonna
Yeah.
say Seth Green.
no, not Seth Green, Tom Green. Which is just a funny look back at where the culture was. But yeah, so I was always a big kid, not like a whole big old fat kid, but I was bigger. And
You
so
were tastefully rotund.
which I know Chris Farley's not tall, but yeah, tastefully large. And so, everyone was like, dude, you're just like Chris Farley. And I was like, I am just like Chris Farley. That was like the coolest thing to be.
So I first saw it, probably similar, late 90s, I think, around I don't know, late 90s. I remember the first time seeing it though was I was on a family vacation with like all my cousins, and there was tons of us, and we all watched it one night, and it was like the funnest night of my life. I remember. It was the part where David Spade pulls the car door off, and he's like, "What'd you do?" I think we rewound that and watched it like 12 times. It was the funniest thing in the world.
Okay, that's a good jumping off point, because I wanted to ask about, like, does the humor in this movie, like, if you were to see this today for the first time, would you think it was funny?
There's definitely parts that are funny, but it's more what the movie did for me watching it today was like it's more like cozy. Like I just like how it's sweet. I like the presentation of America. I like the relationship of Tommy Boy to his father and the work. Like I'm trying to think like how many times did I lull? The thing is like I probably only really laughed out loud like 5 or 6 times, but that's better than contemporary comedies for the most part. So like to me that's still registered as like a funny movie. But there's other movies like Old School or something where I can remember seeing it in college where I was like really like laughing the whole time. And this movie isn't really like that. It's more just like sweet and fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always hard to analyze this from the perspective of already, in a post Tommy Boy world. It's hard to like go back and say, well, would this kind of comedy be funny if I was just seeing it for the first time now?
But I think when I saw it when I was 11, it was the funniest shit in the world. Like I think I was running around yelling "Holy shnikes" and we were doing "Fat Guy in a Little Coat." Like I think we thought everything Chris Farley did was really because he had a period I at least remember very distinctly that he had like a Will Ferrell-esque period where just like everything he said, his cadence and physicality would make me laugh as a little kid. And like I don't have that response to him anymore, but I remember it.
Yeah, there's like definitely there's a Crown sort of thing, and he had the Crown for like part of the mid '90s, and then it does seem like it went to Will Ferrell.
Yeah, I was watching it, and yeah, it's definitely like the parts that were the funniest thing in the world when I was a kid are definitely not the funniest thing ever anymore. But it is very much like, trying to put mainly Chris Farley in his comedy zone where he can do physical comedy and kind of say crazy stuff. And I think a lot of that still holds up, but like I feel like physical humor doesn't necessarily hit as hard the second time you see it, right? Like seeing a guy fall down twice is not as funny as the first time, I guess. But but I feel like there is stuff that really goes well, and it's a lot of the setup. So like I don't know, like when they're pretending to be stewardesses. What's the proper term? Flight attendants.
Stewards? I don't know.
And like that's I think some of that stuff is still funny and works. But yeah, it's definitely not him singing "I'm a maniac" being covered in mud and getting squirted with a hose. That's
honestly,
funny part.
watching it as an adult, I thought what's his face? David Spade was the funnier one as an adult. Like Chris Farley, I loved as a kid. It's very simple, easy to laugh at. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
the quippy, the more comedian style stuff that David Spade did was funnier.
Well, and they play well together, which is, I think, kind of almost like the point of the movie in a way.
Well,
Yeah, and that's the other thing I wanted to say is that the movie never existed in a vacuum, right? Like you came into it knowing who Chris Farley and David Spade were, even back when it first came out. Like everyone knew he was a big star, at least a TV star, and so like they knew he was like he played the whole fatty fall down thing, so you're just waiting for it. And,
yeah. I mean, they had Farley had been on SNL for like 4 or 5 years at that point when this came out, and Saturday Night Live as an institution mattered a lot back then. Now, like, name a cast member.
Black woman.
Can you guys name a cast member? I can't.
Is Kenan Thompson still on?
I think
Probably.
he is. I know the Weekend Update guys. It's Colin Jost and Michael
Okay,
Che, right?
Colin and Che. I knew those two, but
Yeah,
like,
I know Che.
I thought Kenan finally retired. He has the record as longest running.
There's a gay Chinese guy. I know that.
Yeah,
Okay, we got black woman, gay Chinese guy, the kid from all that.
we got two.
Yeah, but back then, we could have named
is Pete Davidson a cast member?
Pete's been off for like 5 years, like 3 or 4 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But back then there was like back then if we were having this conversation, we could have named like 9 cast members or like 10.
Oh, yeah.
Like we could have named them all. But yeah, it's obviously like a failed institution now. But
the other thing I wanted to say about it being funny is, do you guys think? I remember as a kid, just like very fat people in movies being implicitly hilarious by itself, and I don't know if that was a kid thing or it was like, because it makes sense to me that like kids find very fat people funny, but today are there too many fat people for that to be a viable source of comedy?
Probably.
Yeah, I think for two reasons. For one being that like it's become like a political sort of interest group, like the fat people lobby, but also yeah, there's just so many that there's like seeing Tommy Boy. This is actually a good point to bring up. Roger Ebert, he hated Tommy Boy, and he put it on his like most hated list. And some speculation was just because like he just felt attacked, right? He's like, I don't like all these fat jokes. Like I'm a fat guy, and so now. Back then, you might have had like 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 viewers going to the theater and being like uncomfortable, but now you'd have like 50-60% are like, this is it feels like an attack on me.
Yeah, and the movie didn't get very much critical success, and I think a lot of it stemmed from Ebert just not liking fat jokes, and then giving it like a 1 star, and then everyone else kind of doggy piling.
Is that true? It didn't do well? Because in my mind, it's like a pantheon comedy. But
critically, it didn't. I think it was like number 1 for a while. Like
it was number 1. I think the week it came out, but maybe only that week. It made money, but it wasn't like it cost 20 and it made like 32, and it was. But I guess that was considered a success, and then it was one of the most popular like VHS rentals of all time. So
yeah.
I think
that was thanks to me mostly.
Yeah, I definitely rented it a few times, but I think part of the humor and the quotability side of this is there was no TikTok, so like now if there's a funny part of a movie, it just gets put into a meme. And you see it all the time.
Yeah.
But like you couldn't do that for movies back in the day. So like you had to quote it to your friends and act it out. Yeah. That's how you did a TikTok.
Yep. Yes, you had to perform each time.
The Zoomers are going to be so mad at this part.
I know that was actually something I was going to bring up. Is like it's like I assume it's just four millennials right now that we're like all in the sweet spot for this movie. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to point out like we were all kind of in our younger teens, it sounds like, when it came out, but but like older teens and just older, particularly males, liked it a lot too. Like it wasn't just like the kid. It wasn't just appealing to like 13-year-olds. It was probably appealing to like mid-30s as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, kind of like reenacting the parts of the movie for your friends would be funny. Like, like falling down or being like, not here or here so much, but right here. Like, you could laugh at that because there's like a physicality to it,
Yeah.
Whereas like that doesn't. There's not the same draw to doing that when you can just YouTube the clip and be like, hey, look at this.
Yeah. Another old head moment, but like regarding the critical stuff, back then, like you read your local newspaper's critic, and that's like the only critic you saw.
Well, yeah, I
And
was gonna say I don't even remember a critic response to it. I just remember that it was the funniest movie.
they didn't even necessarily give like letter grades or scores. They would just like you just like read like 8 paragraphs of like their commentary on the movie, but people didn't take them seriously. And you couldn't go to Rotten Tomatoes and be like, oh, this is a 40%. Like you just like if it looked cool, you'd go see it.
Yeah, and it was mostly word of mouth. Like,
Yeah.
As a kid, especially, obviously, I didn't care about critics.
Yeah, people maybe read the New York Times critic and then their local paper, and that's like they didn't have like a big consensus thing. So, degree studies, you hit on something about the movie being like cozy, and um, that leads to another question I had, which is like, does the story in these in this movie matter? For some SNL movies, which this technically was not an SNL movie, which we can get into, but for some of them, the story absolutely does not matter. But for this one, do you think it does?
I think so, yes. I mean, I don't know that I would have connected with any of this when I was young, but I think it creates like an atmosphere that's nice. But I actually think the movie is like pretty thematically interesting. Like, I was thinking about there's lots of movies where there's like an heir apparent king, like a prince who's about to take over the kingdom. And like the two archetypes I'm familiar with for that sort of setup is like there's the totally incompetent, like entitled son who the sort of, the people he rules over are like scared. And then there's like the perfect, obviously capable prince. And I think it's pretty interesting that it's like Tommy Jr. is kind of an idiot, but people sort of like him because he grew up with them, and they're all sort of like giving him a shot to get more competent. And then like through working with, David Spade, who has more experience at the company, and even like the girl he's seeing who sort of explains things about shipping and stuff to him, it's like they sort of give him a chance because of his good naturedness, and he increases his capacity over the course of the movie. And I think that's sort of like an interesting idea for a character. And I was trying to think of other movies like where they sort of portray the heir that way, and I couldn't think of any, but I think that's like an interesting setup. It's also interesting that, there's so many movies where the David Spade character would be like, and they hint at this somewhat, that, David Spade would be like, I'm the one who put in the hours and actually like learned things from your dad, and like you're just showing up. And they do have a fight where he sort of says that, but like ultimately David Spade is happy to assist in like training the heir to take over the kingdom. And that's also sort of interesting. Like usually movies would sort of take that conflict to a more dramatic place, have them face off for control of the empire or whatever. Whereas in this, he's just like, and that's sort of what I mean by cozy. Like the movie has all these solutions where it's like people, by being decent or like knowing their role in a community, can sort of resolve some of these problems, and like it all works out. So I was very struck, and maybe it's just because I'm like retarded and right wing and old and like a sad person, but I was very like crying tears for America watching this movie. Like, yes, you could just have a small town and like some fat idiot family can like fight for the jobs and keep them. Like, I don't know. It was like affecting me a little bit. I know I'm babbling on here, but
well, that point you made about the power struggle, the initial script, actually there was no David Spade. It was actually just Farley and was it Rob Lowe, And I think in the original script they were natural brothers, or just biological brothers, and there was some sort of power struggle for the company. That was the original version. But then
Well, to go on degree with what you were saying, that I have in my notes very similar kind of breakdown of like a kingdom and a benevolent ruler, and then like but I think another interesting part that you kind of touched on is that they know their place kind of in the kingdom, where Chris Farley, he has like inheritable like aristocratic traits that he got from his father that nobody else has, basically, right? He inherited it from his father, and nobody else can do what he's doing because he is the prince, the soon to be king or whatever. So I think that's an interesting angle as well that you don't see very much. I mean, maybe you do with like Chosen One type movies, but this one is like very much a like family line. Like it's one of my favorite scenes is when they go past all the past CEOs or whatever of the company, and the last one is his aunt. And I think it's just Chris Farley in drag or something.
Yeah. Funny. Well, and there's that scene when they have the little succession crisis, and they're in the boardroom, and there's that guy. There's like that one guy who believes in Tommy, and it's like it all just comes down to like he's Big Tom's son, so
yeah,
of course
that was that's the It's a Wonderful Life scene. It always reminds me of the boardroom scene from It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, they're like, so of course it's like he has to take on the burden of saving the company, even though the sales trip, the nuts and bolts of the sales trip is just like you go and meet with these guys and like tell them about your new product. It's like it doesn't really need to be Tommy. Like that one of those old guys in the room could have done a better job, but
well, that sets up the comedic situations.
Wouldn't have a movie,
so I think a lot of it is just to set up the comedy. Like he is kind of, there's a progression where he's a bumbling idiot who, has the ability to be like his father, but it's very nascent and not developed. And then, he develops it and is more like him at the end. But I saw that same thing, but I was also thinking this is kind of like the incel neat question, because he's kind of like, a loser who like isn't progressing in life. Although he's not necessarily shown to be like bad with women or anything like that. But we've been talking a lot about modern dating recently with stuff going on. I don't know what, but it kind of reminded me of like, this is the story of like an incel who learns how to be a Chad. And kind of has to learn how to relax and realizes he already had the ability, but he wasn't applying it in the right situation. Like, so that's kind of my take on this is he's kind of like, learning to, be a Chad, through this odyssey across the country with David Spade.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of what Scott was talking about, but just some themes. I have my notes here about themes: fathers and sons, nepotism, but as a virtuous thing, noble blood, positive traits being passed on to your kids, and then the other major one, which we haven't touched on yet, I just think is like Midwestern or American decline, which. And I don't think this especially. I think really they write the movie to deliver the jokes. They're all setups for jokes basically, but the state of things was such that even a comedy writer who doesn't necessarily care about like the state of the West or something, was noticing and was aware of the Midwest in a state of decline.
Well, yeah, I also think that like if you track SNL comedies over time, I just think like it is true that they're all delivery mechanisms for jokes and for these stars to give their performances. But I do think that like you can see that over the decades, like the quality of the writers as literary people really goes down. Because I think in all these old movies, even if they're schlock comedies, they'd use like really evocative classic literary templates.
Right, because they're like
How-
simple stories, so they'd pick
Yeah.
these classic stories to kind of shovel in the jokes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to go back to your question, like, does the story matter? Granted, I think it does, because I think this movie is very enjoyable even when you're not laughing. And I think the reason why is because the story is compelling even when there's not. And there's definitely like modern comedies where like I would even Barbie came to mind as like a movie that made me laugh at various points, but when I wasn't laughing, I was like, wait, what the fuck is going on in this retarded, like, convoluted story? Like, I can't even really follow it. I don't think they're good at embedding what they want to do in sort of a classic appealing narrative anymore. But what do you think, Granted, about the does the story matter question?
So yeah, I think I guess I sort of spoiled my take on that already, but basically, many SNL adjacent movies, it didn't necessarily matter, but in this one, it does. Like the story on this one makes it a lot more watchable, and makes it watchable even when the jokes and the joke styles, which there's like a very Gen X like layer to this, which is like it's actually kind of off-putting. I really like Spade, but like he was in a very Gen X mode at this point, and he's still kind of like that, but he's evolved as well. Um but the story, even if the jokes don't necessarily work as well, the story still is compelling for 90 minutes. Like you can still watch it, and you root for him and stuff, even if you know it's going to happen.
Yeah, and
Well, they sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think part of Farley's stardom, in addition to being, like, I think even more than he is funny, and he's very funny, he's likable, and you want to root for him. And
Yeah,
this
he's
is
like
like,
super nice.
yeah, this is a perfect story for someone you want to root for.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is about about this the story being like taking a larger role than other SNL movies. I think some of the making of it, like they really tried to make this not an SNL movie. Like, it's obviously SNL character, or not characters, but SNL people in it. But like, there's not like the millions of cameos from other SNL cast members and stuff. Like, the only one is Dan Aykroyd, and he's not really even a cameo. He's like a pretty big part. He's like the villain. But um, yeah, I think they tried to take this one a little bit more serious, and you can feel it.
Is he really the only other SNL guy? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know Rob Lowe was on SNL a lot, but he wasn't a cast member.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Yeah, because those
Yeah.
other movies, yeah, they would give every guy like at least 30 seconds or something.
Yep. But that being said, the idea for the movie, or like the inception of it, came from their time like in the hallways at 30 Rock, like the way Chris and the rest of the crew were always pranking each other and making fun of each other and stuff. And Lorne Michaels really loved Chris and wanted to make a movie for him, so using his off-screen character, which is just himself. So
Yeah. Yeah, and like I've always been kind of suspicious of Lorne Michaels, or not suspicious of him, but suspicious of, or like dubious about how good he is or whatever at spotting talent. I mean, obviously he's selected so many like the top guys through, like, he kind of defined who got to be a comedian and got to be in movies, in comedy movies for like 20-30 years. But at the same time, I've had a sense that he's a little overrated in terms of that, but got to give him credit. He saw the dynamic between Farley and Spade and was like, we gotta design something for them, and he assigned SNL writers to come up with some original stuff, and he made a bunch of special exceptions to let them work on the movie during the season and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I've always said, like, or I've always felt like, straight man is like a very unheralded role, and the way Spade does it, like we were just talking about Chris Farley's likability. Like David Spade's role in all these movies, not just this one, and even in SNL skits, was to sort of be like the avatar of like a dislikable little fucker. And I think like that's to lean into that and do that so well. I'm sure it like did take a psychic toll on him, especially because I think off screen, you know, maybe they were somewhat similar people or like whatever. But I just think like he really delivered on all those roles and like did a great job as well.
And speaking of that, I feel like after having like worked in a job now and seeing the movie, like I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how people act in meetings. Like they're just going off on like specs of something, and it's like they don't care. Like, what are you talking about that for? You just gotta schmooze them up a bit.
Yeah, and I think the character that they were going for with him was being a quote smart guy, but not actually smart. Like he thinks he's smart, and Chris Farley thinks he's smart, and so in their little world, he's like the smart one, but he's not really that.
Yeah, does Spade's character even really help? Does he even really? I mean, he gives him the inspiration of the chicken wings thing, but other than that, is he anything but like discouraging?
Well, yeah,
no,
he recognizes the talent, and he's like,
that's
you
the
gotta
important
do it.
thing, because definitely another beat in this movie could be like, if you're looking for conflict, another beat in this movie could be David Spade like trying to undermine or resisting Farley achieving his potential. So, but like it's interesting, even as they're fighting, that he just sort of turns. He sees him sell the waitress or whatever, turn the waitress around, and he just immediately is like, "Oh, I'm gonna help you unlock this innate ability you have." So I think like that ends up. I think you're sort of led to believe that Chris Farley couldn't have gotten there on his own.
Right, and his character arc is he kind of hates him, and then over the course of the trip, starts hating him more, but then kind of recognizes, oh, he is the solution, and they have this camaraderie that builds, and then and yeah, that kind of speech he gives, that is, that's your tearjerker speech, right? It's very like, oh wow, look at this, because he's like, you've just got it naturally, and I have to like work at it or whatever, which I think is an interesting concept in general. I don't know if that's in a lot of movies or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, that's very much a real life thing people have to cope with, either being naturally good at something and how you deal with that, or not being naturally good.
Maybe some of you guys have like worked in sales, but is Tommy actually good at sales? Like I always, there's like a thing where it's like, oh, if you're affable and friendly, then you should go into sales. But it seems like a lot of the best sales guys are actually just like, they're actually not necessarily that friendly. They're just like persistent or whatever. But is Tommy good at sales?
Hey, Granite, why say no when it feels so good to say yes?
Well, that's exactly why I'm asking, because I would not buy. I wouldn't fall for that. Like I'd just be like,
I can take a look up a butcher.
Yeah, I sort of think this is a retarded boomer depiction of what sales is, and like
just shake his hand.
Maybe that worked on them. I don't know. Even the scene, I mean, I'm not holding this against the movie, but even the chicken wing scene, I was like chuckling to myself, like, I have no idea what he did. He just kept babbling. Like he didn't, there's actually nothing in the text that makes it make sense for her to be like, oh, I'm no longer in, because actually what he does is he's like really open and honest about how pathetic he is to the waitress. So like she feels bad, but that's like not the tool he uses in the meeting.
But that would work on a girl, wouldn't it?
Potentially.
She'd be like, you're interesting. Like, but that's what I think it's a similar skill set. Like, but yeah, that wasn't I agree. Like I was watching it, I'm like, this isn't the best like salesmanship skills he's shown off even yet. But like, but just the idea, behind it, I was like, I was on board. But
I think maybe it was supposed to be like just like a vibe shift, and like he's settling in and feeling himself and not being like uptight about.
He's not like trying
to say the right thing.
Hard. He's not a try hard.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
But I mean, the aspect of sales is essentially that like the customer just wants to be reassured. that you're not trying to screw them and they're getting a good deal.
Mhm.
So like really you just need to check those boxes. All the talking points you have are just a way to get there. Like, so yeah, I mean, to a certain extent it is true. Like it's not just if you tell them a funny joke they'll buy your product necessarily. Although maybe there are companies like that, but that's definitely more of a boomer thing. Like you go golfing and you tell them a joke,
Yeah.
and then they buy from you.
I know.
Yeah.
Granted, I've had 2 different cold calling jobs, and the people who were really good at it were just like psychotic bullies, like who could really and they weren't socially incompetent, but they weren't people who like in real life uh would they're the type of people who like if they needed to ask a family member for money and it was going to like really degrade the relationship, they could do it and like not lose any like they were just fine pushing someone to a really uncomfortable place and being like, so are you going to give me this fucking money? But that was like selling to strangers for low dollar amounts. And I have heard from people that, once you're selling products that cost a lot of money, I think it might be more schmoozing because
No, yeah, it is. When you're not trying to fleece poor people out of their money, it's much more like, yeah, you're just kind of building relationships.
Degree studies. It sounds like you're practicing for Christmas. Are you gonna give me that money? You gonna give it to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to make my yearly calls.
Is there anyone who can play Tommy now?
Lizzo.
Yeah, Lizzo.
That is like not out of the bounds of possibility.
Oh, they would do it. I wouldn't.
Like
I wouldn't put it past
Lizzie
them.
girl.
Oh, remaking these movies? I mean, who's physically funny?
Yeah, it has to be super physical.
Tommy Boy starring Jenna Ortega.
And it sort of seems like, too, I don't know if this ended with Kevin James or something, but there was often, like you were talking about the crown, like the funny guy crown, which I think exists, but there's also often like canonical funny fat guys, though maybe that's over. But like if you think in American history, there's often like the top fat funny guy. But I don't know who that is right now.
I guess it's Bert Kreischer. Is that his name?
It might actually.
But he's on the juice now. He got
he got too skinny.
Is he on Ozempic?
Oh, I guess it would be Stavros Halkias.
Oh, stop!
No.
Yeah, that would be awful. But yeah.
Fraser, you said you're a med. Why can't you pronounce a Greek name?
I was doing it ironically.
Okay. But yeah, maybe it's Tim Dillon.
Oh, maybe it is.
Yeah.
He's gay though. So the crowd audience will never relate to him like they would Chris Farley.
Yeah, and Tim Dillon's sort of dark. Like he's like a shadow.
Not super likable.
No, who's the one guy who got kicked off of SNL?
Shane Gillis.
Oh,
Shane Gillis is it.
That's
he
it
would
right
be
there.
The Tommy Boy. He's
Is
Midwest.
Is he fat enough?
He could add some weight, but I think he would be the new Tommy Boy. Yeah, I would actually watch that. Shane Gillis's
role in this. He's a little lower energy though, and he's I found another role for him in this movie. It's that guy on the loading dock who's always mean to Tommy.
Yeah,
he looks just
like him. He's a little meaner and more critical.
That's how you could do it, because Tommy lost his virginity to his daughter. You say it's his son or grandson.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I say we greenlight this.
Let's do it.
Shane Gillis's people, hit us up. We've got the script.
Well, I think we know people who know Shane, so there we go. Let's do it.
Do we want to talk about the girlfriends / wives?
Yeah, sure. Before we do, I'll say that I was listening to I think it was Rob Lowe's appearance on Rogan, and he said that when Bo Derek came to set, she showed up with a shaved head, and that was not the plan. She was supposed to come with long hair, but apparently she had this husband who was very controlling and possessive, and he thought, well, if I shave her head or make her shave her head right before the movie, because he hadn't let her work for like 10 years or something like that, and this was kind of coming out of retirement for her, and so I guess he thought if he messed up her hair that they would like not want her in the movie anymore or something, or that the other like the the other men in the cast wouldn't be attracted to her anymore or something.
Yeah,
I
now
saw
that you say that,
And-
I do remember people like my parents being like, "Oh, Bo Derek is back."
yeah, and apparently the first thing she did on set, like the first thing she filmed was the bikini scene. So knowing that story is kind of funny. That she was, from what it sounds like, she was trying to be convinced not to do it by her husband, and then immediately gets in a bikini.
How old was she?
Good question.
I mean, apparently she was in her prime like 20 years earlier in like the 70s when she was like, and the whole when Chris says she's a 10, she was in a big movie called 10 or something like that where she
was 39 years old.
Oh, she does. She looks older than 39 in the movie.
Yeah, she does, but like that makes me wonder, like, how old is like Margot Robbie or whatever? Aren't they like mid-30s?
Isn't she like 33 or 35 or something?
She's 33. Okay.
And then you wanted to talk about the wives and girlfriends. So the other thing about Bo Derek I thought was really funny at the end when she immediately just moves on to the Zelensky guy.
and she doesn't have to. Apparently, she's not in trouble at all. It's all pinned on Rob Lowe.
Yeah, eternal woman moment.
Yeah, I remember. I'm not going to be able to repeat it, but one of the moments that made me laugh out loud is when Zelensky is dictating the note to send to Rob Lowe. He's like, "Send him a bottle of bubbly. Tough break, kid. Put the ice on your nuts or whatever."
Yeah, this is for your nuts. Like, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd is actually good in it. Good character. And he's
really
only in
Dan.
it like the end, other than the commercial, right? But like, yeah, he does a good job.
And he's like the villain of the movie, but he's actually like a decent guy. Like his character is like, you got me, but you won't get me next time. And so he's like not vindictive or anything. He's just. I thought that aspect of his character was kind of fun.
So the other girlfriend, I guess, is Julie Warner. Her character's name Michelle. I thought she's fine, but she's a little bit like Spade, where she's got all these like Gen X ways of speaking. Like her big moment in the movie is like, when she says, I know where you live, and your mothers will cry when they see what I've done to you. I don't know if do you guys remember that? Do you remember that, like that style of like joke, or like, I don't know how to.
Well, it was a big. I don't know if it predates Farley, but it was a big Farley thing for him to get mad and freak out and do that yelling voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the van down by the river was him yelling at kids.
I don't know if I can articulate it, but there's like this type of like Gen X like joke or comedy.
It's like acting super tough.
Yeah. Overly, yeah.
That's their main thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing they do. Does anyone want to guess her race?
Her real name is Julie Warner.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say she's half Persian, half German.
Wikipedia says in one sentence, she is Jewish.
Yeah, that was gonna be my guess.
So that's like Persian Jewish, a Persian German, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
I sort of think they nailed it with the casting on that. Like, it's very treacherous, or I would find it difficult if it's like, find a woman who is both universally sort of attractive, but people won't be mad if she's dating a big fat guy. And like, I feel like she's perfect.
And you could believe she works at a factory.
Yeah, she's very wholesome.
Which joke I laughed at, speaking of the other girl in the movie, is the girl at the pool, and he goes, "Oh, which way is it to the gym?" And he's like flexing. I was like, that is a good line.
One of the best parts about that line is the setup where he's like, "Don't do the gym thing."
Yeah.
And then he does the gym thing. It's
also like, in 1996, does like a Super 8 on the side of the highway have a gym?
Maybe like an elliptical and something, but yeah.
Sure.
Everything's weird about it because all the windows face the pool, and this lady like looks around for 2 seconds, like, oh, I guess no one's looking, and then, but also that he would walk by late at night looking for a gym. Like, none of it really makes sense.
Also, like a topless dip, maybe. Bottomless, Like never, not in a million years.
Also, I think I succumbed to boob blindness on that one for this. I was too young to recognize.
Well, in low resolution, it goes by real
Yeah.
fast. Like,
Yeah, VHS, you're not seeing much.
Yeah, I definitely didn't try and pause it at that moment at all when I was a kid. Because there's that moment where she's diving in, and it's like, anyway, the angle.
Yeah,
Just
you
right.
guys
Describe
remember?
it. Describe
You
it
guys
for us.
remember the mindset? It's like I knew scientifically that like if a movie had a certain rating, like I couldn't see boobs, and yet I thought like maybe they just let it through if I really
Yep.
go slow, frame by frame.
Yeah, there's definitely a skin colored blur. That's about it.
You know, another ubiquitous joke is pretending to be a housekeeping, knocking on the door. And I would probably say those lines when I was like way too young to know what that was.
oh, the last part you'd say
Yeah.
that part. Yeah, and that joke I guess was Spade's. That Spade actually did that to Farley every morning.
Oh, that's funny.
Because
Dude,
Farley, you know,
the other masturbation joke was always got me. But I didn't realize what was going on until I was quite a bit older. When he's like, I wonder if she goes out with one of the Yankees. Like, what's your favorite little rascal? Is it Alfalfa or is it Spanky? And like, so funny because it completely went over my head for probably the first 8 years of me watching that movie.
yeah, there's a bunch of quotes from this movie that like that where kids would quote them not even knowing what it meant. But then a lot of stuff, it's crazy how much this stuff just kind of worked its way into everyday language, and I feel like I still hear stuff like that. Like, you know, did I hear a niner in there? Like I've heard that 1,000 times.
Oh,
Yeah, they're called doctors. Like that scene alone has like 2 lines that I've heard thousands of times.
But my favorite line of the whole movie is when they're getting pulled over and they're running around like the bees are chasing them. And at the very end, he goes, "Your firearms are useless against them."
Yeah, I've heard that
The
one a bunch
best
of
line.
times. I've heard the thick candy shell. You know, it's funny too because Spade is like the unlikable guy, I guess, in the movie, but he gets a lot of the lines that people sort of modeled their dumb, sarcastic Gen X personality after his character.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense because
Yeah.
Tommy's way more genuine and doesn't have the sarcasm.
Yeah, brother's got a hug. I've heard that one a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I would say that not even remembering what it was from.
Exactly. That's a lot of these.
Say to people, brothers don't shake, brothers got a hug.
Or like, did you eat paint chips as a kid? Like I've heard that one a bunch, and the people weren't even probably aware of the movie that they were quoting.
Yep.
I'm just gonna go down the list of a few more of these quotes just because. Ketchup popsicle, I've heard that one a bunch. The good look at a T-bone. Don't run away from your feelings when he's in the morning. Like I've heard people say that.
I saw him in the bloopers. He just fully has his ass out, and it's funnier than the tiny underwear.
You know, and the way he says "What'd you do?" when the door rips off. That's like a normal. People still say that all the time. I can actually hear you getting fatter. I've heard that one tons of times.
Yeah.
I think that's been said to me many times.
Crazy how many. Is there any movies in modern last 10, 15 years that turned out like that many little quotes that people still use?
I don't know if it's within 15, but Anchorman is kind of
yeah, that's probably more like 20, I think, but
you don't remember from that Timothy Chalamet movie? Everyone saying that line.
Yeah, are people still?
Quoting? Yeah, we need desert power.
Yeah, we need desert power.
I walk around saying that.
I am the Kwisatz Haderach.
To be fair, they don't really make comedies anymore. I don't know if they've made one in like 10 years.
Yeah, Netflix has picked up a little bit of that slack. They've done a few of these like 90s style comedies, but it's not the same.
Oh, I do try to work in the America Ferrera "What It's Like to Be a Woman" speech into my everyday life whenever I can.
Yeah,
I quote the female Ghostbusters jokes.
Oh, female Ghostbusters reminds me that Farley was slated to do Ghostbusters 3. He was they
Oh
were gonna
dang.
not like relaunch it, but like just they were gonna do a sequel, a third, and Farley and I don't know if Spade was gonna be involved, but Farley and some of those guys were gonna be in it.
Well, I mean, he was at the height of his powers. Who knows what he would have gone on to do? You know,
Yeah. Well, he was Shrek.
he was
supposed to be
Shrek, which totally revolutionized animation. That's what made 2D go away.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's not
and
like
Shrek, it's sad because he like just based on not like you study his life or whatever, and there's lots of people that talk about how sad his life was, but Shrek Shrek is kind of him, right? Like it's kind of like the whole Tommy Boy was. It's very biographical of him, and but Shrek is kind of maybe obviously a cartoonish depiction of someone that feels like an outsider, big ugly guy, but everyone loves.
Yeah, and it's not like he was just gonna be Shrek. They had basically recorded almost the whole movie.
Yeah.
With him, and then they tried to get his brother to come in and finish it, and his brother just didn't want to do it. So we got what we got with what's his name, Mike Myers,
the Scottish version. So
they should have added Mike Myers in this after the fact. After he died, they should have put Mike Myers in Tommy.
Yeah, they should have found a way to work him in.
Mm-hmm.
So what was with like the repeating theme of like guarantees being bad? Like what was that all about? Like,
I did think that was another moment where the writing, it's like, it's funny because when he's selling that guy, what he's trying to say is like anybody can just put a fake guarantee on the box, but like he never states it clearly. He is just like babbling, and the guy's like, okay, I changed my mind. But yeah, I think they're trying to say, if I want to give them more credit than is maybe deserved, it's maybe about like the quality of people over like meeting some formal requirement. Like they're saying like, okay, these bigger businesses can have some like technical check that they pass and put a certification, but like us, the Sullivan family, so like you should trust that more. We're quality people.
I mean, for sure, but like because it came up in like the wedding when his dad pitched the guy at the wedding, and then when he finally makes his first sale, and then also with Zelensky, it's just kind of odd.
Do the Callahans have some sort of aversion to guarantees? Like
just put the freaking guarantee on there. Like people like
if it's just a matter of putting it on a box, like why didn't they just put it on the box?
Because you can take a poop in a box and slap a guarantee on it.
Yeah, but I don't get it. I don't get.
You don't get that?
I know I get it, but I don't get why that makes like guarantees not good.
I guess they were probably trying to think like, if the idea is like these guys are good, but they're not keeping up with the times, like what would other bigger companies be doing that they might be resistant to do? And maybe that was what they came up with. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like it kind of further set them as like the underdog and like the old school way of doing things.
Also, what kind of auto parts store had like the CEO talking about it on TV? Do you guys remember a company like that?
That was more of a.
It's not AutoZone. It's not Pep Boys, is it?
Well, I don't know if anyone particularly did that, and I don't know if they did it at the national level, but local advertisers were always like that, you know.
Detroit used to run this country, Cool Fraser.
Yeah, were there guys like that though who were like, "I'm the guy and I run this company," and I
think there were, but maybe longer ago than 1996.
Yeah, maybe that was like from like the 60s.
I do think the movie is like a little bit out of time. Like it's pretending to be in the 90s, but it's really about like the 70s or something.
Well, yeah, because you look at all the sales pitches he makes. He's going into like these mom and pop auto parts stores and stuff, and the guys have like these rich mahogany desks and like it's like very much 80s, 90s or pre 90s, 80s, 70s, whatever, businessman chic type of thing where
Well,
they're very
those guys, thankfully, were still running things back then.
yeah. I mean, it's cool. I actually really like that part of it. I thought it was pretty cool to have
Yeah, I like when
these
they go to that.
businessmen that cared about their offices that way.
I like when they go to that guy who's got that fat gut, and he's just kind of weird, and he's like, "I'm sorry to hear about your old man, Tommy." And I was just thinking, we got to get those guys back in power. We need to make room for them again.
Very fat positive.
Well, it's a Midwest movie.
Mm-hmm. Also, a lot of yelling at children.
Yeah. The original title of the movie was Billy the Third, a Midwestern.
Really?
Yeah, which they dropped. Lorne Michaels wanted them to drop it because Billy Madison was being produced at the same time.
Mm.
I actually like that title, but Tommy Boy sells better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a pretty good title somehow.
Yeah.
Well, was that? I mean, I'd never a Midwestern. Like calling something a Midwestern is kind of clever. Like I don't know if anyone had done that. Maybe they had.
Right.
We need to bring it back. We're gonna do a movie marathon, all Midwesterns. What other Midwesterns are there?
Fargo.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's it.
There's got to be other ones. That 70s show.
A Simple Plan.
Oh yeah, Simple Plan's great. I plan to cover that.
Isn't that a band?
That's where they got their name.
Oh.
Yeah, I think. Maybe
We should do Newfound Glory, the movie.
That probably is a movie.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm just making that up, but it probably is. I don't know if you guys noticed that Farley's undershirts are often longer than his shirts.
Oh yeah.
And
they're always like all ruffled up and all messed up.
Yeah, was that some sort of style in the 90s? I don't remember that
Well,
one.
90s was all about wearing two
it,
shirts.
Oh yeah, layering. And if you look at any of his appearances on like the late shows or whatever, he's always super unkempt that way, where you can just
Yeah, I sort of assumed it was just that he's so physical that all his undershirts always come untucked.
Yeah.
Mine are always coming untucked.
And do they hang below your outer shirt?
If I'm physical.
That's why we've also got another sponsor, which is the Duluth Trading Company, and they have those like
long tail tee.
Yeah,
I buy them.
And I like Duluth and Croom are ever going to be direct competitors, or you think their market segments are distinct enough that?
Oh, Croom has an exclusive partnership deal with Duluth to distribute.
Well, they have that meme, it's like Netflix and chill, but it's Duluth and Croom.
Yeah, Duluth and Croom. Speaking of Tommy's appearance, his clothing, I like his jacket. I would love to have that jacket, his Marquette rugby jacket.
Have you looked for it?
Yeah,
I did. I didn't really find any, but he did. He actually played. What's that?
Yeah. No, just go ahead.
Oh, he actually played Marquette rugby. So,
I wonder if it was his jacket that he was wearing.
I assume it was. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Did he graduate from Marquette?
He attended. I don't know if he graduated, but he did go there. Yeah.
Because maybe that's why they were happy to do it. Maybe he was a real, beloved alum.
I don't think it's filmed there though. I think they only filmed in Toronto and LA. So, so I don't know. What are the rules? You can just like say you're at a place in a movie, right? You don't have to get their permission.
I'm gonna Google right now. Can you say you're at a university when you're not actually there in a movie?
So one thing that I remember I misheard as a kid, and until like very recently, I didn't realize when he's doing that speech in the diner, when he says that JoJo's the idiot circus boy.
Yeah.
I always thought he said Indian circus boy. So I was like, is that like were there Indians in the circus? Is that like some type of racist thing? For like my whole life, I thought it was like some racist thing.
Is this the best road trip movie?
I'm gonna say no because there's so many, but I don't have a better one in mind. Let me think.
Road trip movies.
There's a lot of
road trip.
Road trip. Your road trip. Oh brother, where art thou?
Is that a road trip movie? Yeah.
It's a quest movie, but it's not like a.
Like I'm thinking like because part of what what makes this movie so great is the music. Like, well, that's one of the standout things, and it's like a road trip type of
Singing
vibe
the
with all
songs
music.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at some website. They're saying
Do you
almost
guys know what was the Spanish song they were singing? That made
Eres
me.
tú.
Tell us about
Okay,
it.
I guess I should know
Fraser.
that song.
Eres tú. Una sonrisa en la mañana. That's a smile in the morning. It's
Who is
you.
that? Who is that by?
Oh, I actually don't know. I just know it from this movie. But
Oh, okay.
it's a good song. Eres tú by Mocha. What is it? Mocha Dades.
I know I had heard that song
Mose Dades.
like on like adult contemporary radio or something. And the whole gag though with like those songs is something Spade did in real life. He would have like Carpenters in his tape player. So when people came in his car, he would be blasting that as a bit, I guess.
That was like me in high school. I drove my dad's like '95 F-150, and the tape deck had Simon and Garfunkel stuck in it. So all I had was
Let's go.
one side of a Simon and Garfunkel tape. It was actually pretty awesome.
What songs were on it?
There was like Mrs. Robinson. I think it was actually like a one of their best of tapes. So
Yeah.
like all their good ones.
So, granted, I'm briefly Googling best road trip movies, and Midnight Run comes up.
Okay.
Dumb
yeah.
and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber's good. That's a good road trip movie.
The Muppet Movie. Oh, and National Lampoon's Vacation. These are some good ones.
Yeah.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Oh, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles would probably be the one I would choose.
Yeah, I might not count that one
couple-
because that's like an involuntary road trip, but it's a rich category, the road trip movie.
Do Zoomers drive around and sing?
They don't have licenses, and gasoline is more expensive, and like the only car, and like the low end cars now are like pretty expensive.
Yeah, do high schoolers drive anymore?
I honestly rarely see it.
I do, but
You
don't know.
yeah, you live in a more probably a place with more teens, but
yeah, like there's some teens in my neighborhood that they all have like these old like '90s and '80s pickup trucks and stuff. It kind of makes me nostalgic. But yeah, maybe it's a special case.
I do think it's way down. I mean, there's obviously going to be some, but I think the idea of it being a teenager and driving around. Oh, also, the big thing is phones. Like, car was freedom for us, and it's. I saw a survey. A lot of teens would much rather have a phone than a car.
Well, yeah, I think for our generation, it took till like 30 to realize the whole planet was just one big prison, and I think younger people know that by the time they're like 10.
Right. Prison planet. Yeah, I agree that watching this movie now is like a tragedy because it's of a time long gone that we'll never have again. And so yeah, I do wonder what the Zoomer take would be. But yeah, very cozy. It doesn't exist anymore. There's all those small towns, all those businesses are gone.
Yeah, like in the real life version of this movie, right after they go out of those sales meetings, like a Clinton NAFTA advisor comes in and is like, "You got to buy brake pads from Tokyo, baby."
Yeah, these brake pads are not right or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking as well. After Tommy saves the plant, it like ends up closing 6 months later anyway.
Yeah, because China sold Chinese brake
So
pads.
speaking of it being a tragedy, I think I like to break down movies based like their plot points and like the inciting incident and like the lock-in and stuff. The main tension being that they were trying to save the company by selling brake pads. It actually was a tragedy because they failed in the end, and all the stuff that they did to save it was all just third act tension stuff. So yeah, it technically was a tragedy because they failed.
My buddy got a word in what's it called? Urban Dictionary, fatletic, where you're fat but also athletic.
Oh,
And I
that
feel like
definitely fits.
people love that still. I've seen TikToks of fat people dancing and stuff, but like they're good at it, you know?
No, it's very satisfying. We had a couple real fat kids in our high school who were great athletes, and like for some reason that was so much more fun than just like a really in shape guy being a great athlete.
Oh yeah, my high school was like 15% Polynesian, and that's like all of them. They're like super big, and many of them overweight, but they're like the best athletes in the school.
Love to do little Michael Jackson dances.
Yep,
Is that a
sure.
Polynesian thing?
They love
I don't
just
know.
hip hop and
Just
black
like
culture.
any of those like fast foot movements that like Farley could do.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Is he
like-
comically fat enough? Like, would people be like, "Oh wow, people were so skinny in the '90s because Chris Farley was hilariously fat"?
well, I had a one of the bigger tweets I've had in a while, just joking that Brian Dennehy and Farley were considered comically large back then, and they're like they don't look that big.
Yeah,
They don't.
yeah, and I
saw,
do
I
think
saw
like
that tweet
today,
and was offended.
he is. I think people knew even at the time that Chris Farley was like a handsome fat guy, but at the time he was so fat that it like didn't come up. Whereas like now, I think people really would just be like, "Look at this overweight handsome guy."
Well, he supposedly got chicks IRL, but yeah, he carried a lot of weight in the jowl region, which some fat people don't, right?
Yeah, he was a fat guy, and this is slowly happening to me, so I'm super aware of it. Where like when they would close up on his face, his features are just bunched in the middle of like this giant flesh watermelon, and like there's something very comical about that.
Yeah.
Well, Spade even said, Farley says, "Does this jacket make me look fat?" And Spade says, "No, your face does."
But yeah, I saw like when he was like running with like at the school in the like first scene. I'm like, yeah, I guess he's not that fat.
Dude, one of my favorite parts is when the guy cowers. When he's
Oh
running.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
that
funny.
was good.
On SNL, he did like ice skating, and he was pretty good. He could like skate on
Mhm.
one skate.
Oh, and the dance with what's his face?
The Chippendale thing
Chippendale thing.
that
Yeah.
Bob Odenkirk hates.
Mhm.
Wait, why does Bob Odenkirk hate it?
He just
a
felt like
hater.
it was like making fun of. It was like crossing a line. Like it was too humiliating.
He thought it was mean.
Which was
I
like
don't know, that's weird because he
Mean to
kind of
Farley?
It kind of looks
Yeah.
great. Like
Yeah, it's like amazing.
well, the thing too. So Odenkirk was like a writer at
Mhm.
SNL at the time. Like, and I think he probably knew which Farley.
Right. Farley
Farley-
actually was sensitive about it.
Yeah,
kind
he
of.
actually like a lot of what he was doing was like to overcompensate for the fact that he was ashamed. So
Yeah.
Right, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
what's sad, speaking of his weight, was like after this movie, and then he really ballooned up. He lost, or he kind of went off the rails even more. Obviously, like
Mhm.
we kind of know his story after leaving SNL and stuff. But yeah, there's moments where you see him, and he is just like gotten huge comparatively to Tommy Boy.
yeah, he got a lot bigger, and people would note that his skin was like gray and stuff. It was rough.
Oh yeah, he wasn't just eating.
there's a clip, the most impressive physical thing I've seen him do. There's a clip where he like runs on the ice at a Blackhawks game or something, as like a bit between periods, and he's like falling and sliding around the ice, and it's like so funny but very athletic. It's like an incredible little clip.
Yeah,
My favorite fall of his was, I think it was like Jay Leno or something, where he comes out and he like falls on the stage and he like skids on his face, like his feet are up in there. Like he commits to the fall. It's impressive.
Yeah, so is this the tragedy of the clown? What's that?
Pagliacci or whatever.
Yeah, Pagliacci. Just because he obviously he had a sad core and he would overcompensate by trying to make everyone else happy, but then supplement that with like cocaine and whatever he was doing.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like watching some of his appearances on like being interviewed and stuff, it was hard to watch. I had to turn him off because he was like you could tell he's trying so hard to be likable, and like he's playing this really dumb character. And I kind of felt a little bit what Odenkirk was saying, where it's like, man, this is a tragedy right in front of us. Like he's uh, I don't know, he's so insecure. You can tell he's trying so hard to be somebody else.
Now I'm all depressed, Scott.
Well, the hosts and stuff in those scenarios felt they had like permission to just like ridicule him to his face when they would have. I'm sure they had other like fat guests whose identity was not being a fat guy, so they wouldn't make fun of those people. But
well, it's kind of like David Spade had license to do it because they're like best buds, and he did it on the big movie and stuff. But then I think that kind of gave maybe undue license to everyone else.
Well, yeah, I do know even from my own, like, I think it's I don't know. I don't want to compare myself to Farley or like the sad clown archetype, but I do notice that like if self-deprecation is a part of your humor, you will sometimes encounter people. Like most people are very good about just like laughing about it, and they're like, "Oh, this person doesn't take themselves too seriously," and they like enjoy it and move on. But some people will be like, "Oh, this guy's mocking himself," then like I'll just like double down on mocking him. And you're like, no, that's not what I'm not like flying a flag that says everyone can shit on me. Like that's not but some people do have that response to if you do any kind of self-mockery, and then you really have to like police it, which I imagine, you know, if your career is self-mockery, then setting up any kind of boundary becomes even more complicated.
Right. Doomed to fail almost.
Yeah, in another universe, we would have had Farley, you know, maybe getting... He was always probably going to be a big guy, but in another universe, he maybe slims down a little bit and then gets to do, like, Oscar bait movies that so many of these comedians do.
Yeah, he probably would have.
Yeah, he would have, too, because he was a good actor. He was a compelling screen presence. Like, when
he was trained in Chicago improv, right?
Yeah.
Right. What could have been Chris Farley's Uncut Gems?
Well,
or Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, or Truman Show or something like that. Like, you know, they David Mamet was working on a Fatty Arbuckle movie, some old Hollywood big guy, and Farley was supposed to play that role, which I assume that would have been like a serious type of movie. But yeah, I mean, if Farley was still around, he would have had that opportunity, I think.
For sure. I mean, he kind of had some acting chops in Tommy Boy, like on the dinghy with his girlfriend starting to tear up and stuff. Like he was showing off a little bit some acting skills.
Yeah, I think he's compelling. He could have done it. And a lot of comedians have proven that it's much easier for a comedian to learn to act than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. There is a tragic component where it's like now it's a normal thing to take like fat losers who aren't Chad and like try to give them a shot at being Chad. Like I'm thinking of like Jonah Hill or somebody, but like Chris Farley weirdly like actually was Chad. Like, and it seems like maybe he didn't know it and was like tortured by,
or at least on some level he didn't. But feel it. You know,
I think he did weirdly like at times cross into like alpha charisma,
right? Because he owned the room wherever he went, and he was, you know, the funniest guy in the room, which kind of makes you the Chad, right? Like, and it wasn't from a place of weakness like some people would do, like self-deprecating, like a Jonah Hill who's like, oh, I'm a sad fat guy, you know. Like,
and apparently Chris got chicks, right? Like he didn't have problems in the woman department.
We should read Jonah Hill's texts to that surfer girl.
Well, I will say there's a caveat in getting chicks when you're famous, which is
that's true.
Sure,
they'll let you do it when you're a celebrity. They let you do it.
No, but he's charming.
He could have gotten women in a normal setting too.
Yeah. No, and that's back to my incel point. Like, I kind of want the incel losers who we're friends with. You guys know who you are. I want them to watch this and be like, look, if you just learn how to be not a stick in the mud and not like a lame-o who's like always on his phone listening to emo rap, like you can go and talk to girls and like charm them and get them. It doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah,
Like,
you need.
Yeah, but these people don't want to be helped, Fraser.
no,
mean,
I know. It's very weird because like there, there's the hormones, the microplastics that's like taking away their gender. I don't know what they're doing. But anyway.
Sensitive young men need to be working on their pratfalls.
Yeah, they need to perfect the cartwheel.
Well, I think one of the things he did that was funny was the crashing of the cars. Like I don't know, like I feel like there's like I don't know, like you can move beyond your looks. Like who is the new Chris Farley is one egg white, Eggy. Although he might be, is he dead? Or is he still around?
no, he's still kicking.
Where's he at? I haven't seen him.
I don't have like a status update. I just know he's not
kicking.
dead.
All right.
Well, that's instructive though. It's like if you are a certain way, you need to find a thing or things to do and to talk about or something. Like you need to be out there doing a thing.
Yeah. So all you incel loser freaks listening right now,
which is most of the audience, I think.
Yeah. Go watch this movie and learn how to get chicks.
The first thing you need to do is order some Croom. The second thing you need to do
is get that long-tailed Duluth.
Study the canon of Chris Farley.
Yeah, everything changes once that Croom hits.
Pheromone infused, right?
Yeah, they've got testosterone. It's in the cream.
Perfect.
So it's topically absorbed testosterone. All right, I'm gonna hit some just did you know factoid stuff. It was shot during the SNL season, which I think they normally don't do, and so Farley and Spade would have to be in New York from like Wednesday to Saturday or something like that for all the rehearsals and the show, and then they would get on a private plane that was apparently kind of small, go back to Toronto, and film on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday or something like that, and then go back. Which I guess they were kind of young, but that sounds torturous to me. Which I guess that's where cocaine becomes, you start relying on cocaine. I already said the Carpenter song thing. Oh, the cow tipping. Oh, and we talked earlier about like watching it as an adult. You might appreciate like Spade's performance more, but I also appreciate Rob Lowe's performance. He's funny too. He's
100%.
He's just not doing like a funny character, but he's funny in how like how evil he is. Cow tipping was his idea, and the people making the movie, like director or whatever, didn't even know what it was. He had to explain it to them.
Yeah,
we tried to do it once, me and my group of friends.
Oh, yeah.
I did too. Yeah, it was at like a church camp out thing.
Same.
And there was like a cow field not that far away, and we like snuck off and tried to do it.
Yeah, that was the night Adam fell in the fire.
I don't know if this was adult propaganda, but I feel like some adult told me that like the cows have to be shot, like they can't get up or something. That's not true, right?
I don't think it's true, but
I remember
maybe
hearing
like a factory
feed
cow. I heard that it's just not possible, and that was the joke.
Yeah, it's not possible because aren't they like 2,500 pounds or something?
Yeah, like you can't tip them, so you just run and then they chase you. Like you try to tip them, they wake up and they chase you off.
The deer on the car, they had made an animatronic deer, but it looked bad, so they just had a guy in the back seat wear like a deer thing over his body. He freaks out and tears the car, and then at the end when they have a real deer standing on the car, and Scott, I think you listened to the same making of thing that I did, and I wasn't a little unclear about this, but it sounded like the animal trainer said like you're gonna have to leave this car here for multiple weeks at a time and leave like food on it, and at one day the deer will feel comfortable walking on top of the car, and that's when you get your shot. I don't know exactly how they did that, how they timed it, but that's what they did.
I didn't hear that one.
And then some more stuff about Farley. He started Second City in Chicago the same day as Colbert.
He also died at the same age as Belushi. John
Yeah.
Belushi. 33.
Farley's cousin is the CEO of Ford Motor Company, and Farley's dad was like an oil executive too. And Farley's dad was significantly larger than Farley himself.
He was Big Tom Farley.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's a weird thing too. A lot of the movie is vaguely kind of like Tommy or like Chris's real life.
Yeah, I mean it's Midwest. It's dad in like a kind of a at least adjacent auto industry thing. Anyway, yeah, he
Yeah.
worked for his dad after college for a bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was just like drug addict cope or something, but allegedly one of Farley's relapses was on opening night of Black Sheep because he hated the movie so much.
Right, and his family tried to get him to not do Beverly Hills Ninja
Oh, really? Why what was the reason for that?
because it was bad. It was just
Oh.
a dumb movie. It was just
I like the
stupid.
movie though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
mean,
actually think that movie holds up better, almost.
Yeah, that's better than Black Sheep probably.
Yeah. The car was a 1967 Plymouth Satellite GTX badged. I looked up auction history. They sell for about like 20,000, like in mint condition.
wow.
In
man.
cherry condition.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to check that out.
Well, I looked up. There was like one or two that went up to like 60,000, but I don't know what it was about them. But
It's probably the car from Tommy Boy.
yeah, probably.
The in the airplane when Spade is like doing the goofy reading of the flight instructions or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't help but think that's just like how Southwest is normally now. That's like what airline. That's how they behave now anyway. So
Except for he called him said what was it? If you can't buckle a seatbelt, he's gonna come hit you with a tack hammer because you are a retard.
that's not too far off from how some of these Southwest ladies are. They all want to be comedians.
Huh. I need to fly more, I guess.
Okay, that's like all my stuff. Anyone else got anything?
If they recast it, I think they should put Zazie Beetz as the love interest.
So Lizzo and Zay-Z.
Yeah. A Lizzo Zazie pair up. I was gonna try to think of more of a clever in for this week, but it didn't come to me. I've been using too much Croom. I can't really think straight.
Well, we'll need to tell the research team because Croom's supposed to help your cognitive abilities.
Well, I've been rubbing it all over my face.
There's just Croom all over my office now. This stuff gets everywhere.
I got it stuck in my keyboard.
So, what is your guys' favorite Little Rascal?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say flavor of Croom.
No, what's your favorite Little Rascal? Is it
Flavor?
alfalfa or sweet?
I mean, you're not supposed to eat it, right? I haven't eaten it. Mine is horchata.
Yeah, mine is barbecue.
Barbecue Croom. That's a good idea. Yeah, we'll release Croom and barbecue.
Barbacroom. I don't think to answer your question, Scott. I don't think I have a favorite Little Rascal, but
my favorite Little Rascal is Trump when he appears in the Little Rascal movie.
Yeah.
let's
Nice.
go.
Which I think they edited out for some versions.
Yeah, like for sensitive viewers. Will a Zoomer enjoy it?
Probably it's fine. Like it's pretty easy.
I think they would because it's just such like an enjoyable lead performance. But I do assume that movies like this for them like might as well be based in an alien planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't imagine what a 20-year-old thinks about the idea of driving around to sell brake pads.
Although I will say I got a new sound system for my home theater, and it makes watching movies a lot better. I'll just say that. So do it, Zoomers. Spend money on your media consumption.
Yeah, it really helps when you're freeze framing that side boob scene.
Well, the audio doesn't help. You can really hear them clap.
Yeah, there's no
swinging in the wind.
there's no Tommy Boy 4K.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
criterion.
I'll be the first one to buy the 4K edition.
Yeah, Scott is a pro at that. He knows exactly the timestamp.
There's a laser discs are only like $10 on eBay, so someone could grab one of those.
Well, it's on Max, formerly HBO.
Yeah, that's what I watched it on.
Yeah. So it seemed HD at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ladies out there, not only am I an early Croom investor, I spring for Max every month, you know.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
there you
that
go.
from some of the like green text I've read or whatever, that actually apparently moves the needle. Imagine if she comes over and you have to like watch something on Plex. She'd be really mad.
Oh, really?
No, it's got all the same movies. Look, and you can have whatever subtitles you want in any language.
I had a girl. There have been like think pieces written about this, but I had a girl go on one date with me, text with me a bit, get my Netflix login, and she was watching bullshit on there for like 6 months before I figured out how to change my password.
You cut her off though.
I did. I have a lot of
Strong.
self-respect.
Yeah.
That's the thing about me. I said 6 months. That's enough.
On to the next girl.
Okay, I'll cut it off there. But thanks to our sponsors, Shaolin AI and Croom, products for men. Until next time, we'll see you later, guys.
All right, take care, gentlemen.
Adios.
See ya.